Looking back, a year ago, I was doing this basically full time. This writing venture here. I was more or less doing this as my kind of sole job, my my sole responsibility for about a 6 month period. Obviously, talk to death about my sabbatical. I vlogged the process very early in this channel. Those first 6 months of this vlog here were all about my time while on sabbatical. And I've been thinking more about it, not so much, in the longing sense for, man, I wish I was back there, but there was something that I was doing last year that I haven't been doing now because of kind of additional obligations, because I don't have as much time as I had back then. And what that is simply time at the keyboard and output in work, specifically reading, in addition to my writing. A year ago, I was having great sessions, like close to 3 hours, at the keyboard, basically daily. In addition to reading a ton back at the time, I remember basically mornings, afternoons, basically spent reading. It was awesome, and my productivity was absolutely on fire during this time. I mean, again, I basically revised. I think what I revised one basically draft, like one final draft of a story for a publisher, and then I went through and I think I did 2 or 3 passes of basically of an additional draft on a secondary novel as well. It was a ton of work, and I'm looking at what I'm doing now, where today I barely got about another half hour in this morning, just because again I've got so many things going on this evening that just getting a quick morning writing session in before I got to work is kind of all I can fit in at the moment. And so the point of this is that to get to the next level, you often have to do the work of those that are at that level beforehand. I've talked before about the NBA, about comparing sort of my thought process on writing to playing basketball, where you have the dabbler, the guy who just wants to pick up basketball on the weekends. That's totally cool, right? You have the dabbler in writing, the person that just wants to kind of mess around and write a little bit here and there, versus the professional, right? The person that actually wants to get into the NBA, and the differences in their attitudes, their mentality, and their work ethic towards the craft. And if you're trying to get into the NBA, you've got to be having the work ethic of an NBA athlete well before then. Like when you're in college, you got to basically be putting in probably 12-hour days, I surmise. Everything from waking up, doing like conditioning, working out basically in the mornings, to like practice, to going, if you're in college, you're going to class, you're having your lunch. Then you're doing more conditioning and more practice work in the afternoon, and then doing probably an additional thing of conditioning in the evening, in addition to studying for your classes. And then basically you're going to bed. There's not a whole lot of time to party, not a whole lot of time for other things, because you're basically doing the amount of work that a professional NBA athlete is doing while you're trying to get to that level. And so you can't hope that when you're at a certain level, like in the future, that you'll do that work. If you're, the college athlete that wants to play in the NBA, you can't just kind of dabble around with your basketball and then tell yourself, hey, when I'm in the NBA, that's when I'll put in, that Kobe Bryant famous, amount of time. That's when I'll put in all my conditioning and all my effort, right? You have to put it in before then to get to that level. And it's kind of the same thing with writers. Granted, the writing business is, I think, in terms of labor, in terms of hours, a lot less. Most writers don't even write every single day. A lot of writers are kind of approach this very sporadically, and they take their time. They take years on certain projects. If you put in the total amount of time they invested every day into their writing, relatively low, I imagine. It's not nearly as high as certainly as someone that's like a professional athlete or something like that, puts into their day. And that's a great benefit. That's a great side aspect of this business, is that you don't necessarily have to put in tons and tons of hours at the highest level. But with that, you do have to put in the work ethic of the person at that level. So if someone puts out a book, say every 18 months, maybe every 2 years, you got to be doing that already. You have to already be doing that, and it's a lot easier, right? For a lot of writers, it's a lot easier. But say you want to be prolific, that you want to be a bestseller, that you want to have, multiple titles to your name. Look at those that are producing multiple titles. See how many they produce in a year. Start looking at more commercial people, more commercial names. In the sci-fi fantasy realm, obviously you have someone like a Brandon Sanderson as an example, who puts out tons of work. Try to get to his level. Try and get to that level of skill if that's what you're trying to do in the sci-fi fantasy realm. If you want to be as well known as him, you have to basically put in the same effort now to get to that level. One can never wait until you're at the highest point to then do the work that's required. It needs to come first. It's like saying, hey, listen, give me the spark, and then I'll load the fireplace up with all the wood and the kindling and all that stuff. It's like, no. The wood and the kindling and the paper, that needs to already be loaded into the fireplace before the spark is ever given to you. And for me, it's looking now back at what I was doing before to get to that level and seeing I'm not doing it again. I'm not there right now, and trying to find a way to at some point get back to that, because I think that's what's going to get me to that next level. I think that'll be what gets me there. How we get to that point, I don't know yet. I haven't quite figured that out. How I can manage that, I'm not sure yet.